Hi friends, I'm Phoebe. I'm on a music discovery journey and I would like to invite you along for this ride. I am catching up on music that I may have missed over the years and listening to tracks that I haven't had time to until now. I'm trying to share my experience with everyone as part of a sharing of music discovery. Perhaps you wanted to live vicariously through someone else in me reacting to something for the first time through fresh eyes, or you wanted to expand your music horizons. Either way, everyone is welcome. Please like and subscribe if you like the sound of that. Every little helps. I am going to continue the Ren chapters today. We're only at chapter 3. The first 2 were sad, or had sad moments. There was some tears, and there was a lot about Ren talking about his diagnosis or his troubles before diagnosis, and some hardships along the way. This one I know already because there were songs at the end of each. We had For Joe on the first one, which was incredibly sad about Ren's friend that he lost to suicide. Then chapter 2 we had Runaway at the end of that. So I've checked which track is at the end of this just so I have the lyrics ready. It's Depression, I think. At least that's what I've got from a Google search. So if it's different, we'll have to stop and get the lyrics up, because I like to just see a version of the lyrics on another screen while I'm going through and listening. Okay, it's just under 12 minutes long. We are going to watch all the way through and stop and start if we need to along the way.
My therapist was scowling at my weekly anxiety and depression scores like a detective trying to crack a particularly stubborn case. There were no signs of improvement, and the scores followed no real measurable pattern that were consistent with bipolar. After nearly 2 years of talk therapy and taking enough medications to fill a pharmacy, he sat down with me and he dropped the bombshell that he didn't think that I had bipolar. In fact, he said that he didn't think that I had depression at all. And it was a very odd thing to be stripped of an identity in an instant. The reality was that a 20-minute in and out consultation 2 years ago led to 2 years of swallowing pills that I never needed, and
he talks about this previously, where medical neglect is a big thing and a dangerous thing. The fact that he said a 20-minute consultation took 2 years of his life doing a thing that wasn't helping him, and in fact hindering his progress in life, his health. A doctor saying you don't have depression at all, not thinking you have depression, but also how depressing it is going through all of this. Like, it's the gaslighting. He has mentioned that as well before. That's not, it's not my own discovery. It's a shared discovery for sure, because I have had the same thing. I've had my doctor tell me for years that I didn't have ADHD or deflect. So when I would go and ask for a diagnosis, they would say, "Oh no, I think you've got depression." It was depression from the cause of it all, of having this thing that I couldn't work out what it was.
In and out consultation 2 years ago led to 2 years of swallowing pills that I never needed, and devoting so much of my time to managing the condition that I never actually had. The emotions inside me swirled around like a mismatched soup. On one hand, I was full of anger and I was bitter about the whole situation, but I was also hopeful that this new path could offer me the relief that I desperately needed. He told me he was going to refer me to an ME clinic in Bath. I'd never heard of it before, but instinctively true to character, I started researching it online as soon as I got home.
ADHD.
Apparently ME is the medical equivalent of a choose-your-own-adventure book, with tiredness as the only consistent plot line. There were no universally accepted reasons as to why the fuck it existed in the first place. It seemed it was largely accepted to be a post-viral condition, but that was all speculative because there were no clear consensus in the medical community what ME even was. The defining characteristic was a tiredness that wouldn't go away with rest. I could relate to this. In fact, I could more than relate to it. For anyone lucky enough to have not have experienced this, If you want an idea of what it's like, force yourself to stay awake for 3 nights in a row. During this time, eat the food that makes you feel terrible, and in this sleep-deprived state, exercise until your muscles give out. By the 3rd day, you'll have a small insight into living with this condition. During the years post-stem cell transplant, where I recovered a lot of my health and functionality, I remember getting COVID and thinking it was a walk in the park compared to the first year of my illness. The difference was COVID lasted about a week. The thick of my illness lasted 8 years, and it only was getting worse.
It just reiterates how awful it is living with conditions that really do impact your daily life, and that the way he's described it there feels harrowing. And the fact that there aren't really, or there wasn't a lot of research into ME, or there wasn't a lot of answers, particularly a few years ago. There's more research is being done as we progress throughout life, but you imagine having a condition where there's not many answers, or even not knowing if it is in fact that condition, something similar. It's horrible trying to pinpoint something and having to do it essentially yourself, because the doctors can't seem to help, professionals can't seem to help. And it does, I always feel like, trust your body, because you know your body more than anyone else can, especially from a 20-minute consultation. You're living with this, but also it's hard when you are more certain and a doctor will just invalidate that in an instant. It's heartbreaking, having gone through similar experiences with my diagnoses and questions that I didn't know the answer to, or when I did know the answer to, I would get invalidated. It's frustrating. It's frustrating hearing it. It makes me a mix of angry, bitter, sad, that for years of someone's life they can go through that, and some people go through even longer. It's not a competition. Any time spent not knowing or getting gaslit for your medical health, medical issues, is a waste of time. It's time wasted that could have helped, you know? It's heartbreaking.
The thick of my illness lasted 8 years, and it only was getting worse. I pinned a lot of hope on going to that first visit at the ME clinic. It was a 6-month waiting list, God bless NHS wait times, but I felt excited to be surrounded by people who would understand me, where I could climb out of this nightmare, but my hopes were pretty quickly crushed during that first visit. I remember walking into a space that looked like a disused classroom where a bunch of people on chairs were sitting around in circles like Alcoholics Anonymous. I could feel a sense of camaraderie in that we all felt like dog shit. We were all confused and we were all desperately wanting to feel better. I believe at the time I was probably the youngest in the group. The group leader waddled in and handed us all a booklet that looked like a school timetable. She then sat us down and told about this new revolutionary technique called pacing, where you write down and track everything that you do in a day, and then you do it less. And then with time, do it more again. The theory being that you have a limited bucket of energy compared to normal people, and you need to protect that and gradually push it. I thought this sounded pretty stupid, so I raised my hand. I told her about the pain in my body. I told her that my muscles twitched constantly. I told her that my bones ached. I told her that my mouth was dry. I couldn't focus. That some days they'd be without mercy and I'd be trapped in bed for the whole day. But the days that I wasn't, I wanted to make the most of it. I wanted to breathe the air and I wanted to live. She told me she understood it's hard, but she didn't really offer more than that. She just pointed at the booklet and told me to follow it. I asked her about things like heavy metal poisoning, about chronically reactivating viruses, about defective mitochondria, about all the things that I read that were linked to chronic fatigue, but she just raised an eyebrow, looked at me like I was a hypochondriac and told me she knew nothing about those things.
When you so desperately want the answers, you will do anything to get them. And researching is one of the most useful things. I can absolutely relate to that, looking at every bit of information that might lead to something. and desperately searching for answers from people. And not everyone knows everything. So, yeah, there will be times that people just look at you blankly, or even concerningly, as if you are the crazy person for wanting to know more, or the possible causes or results, consequences of things it might be. That's heartbreaking.
She just raised an eyebrow, looked at me like I was a hypochondriac, and told me she knew nothing about those things. I remember walking out of the building feeling disheartened and defeated, so much so that my legs buckled as I was walking home. I began to sob uncontrollably on the side of the road. An old woman knelt down to comfort me and asked me what was wrong. I didn't even really know how to explain, so I just told her that I missed my friend. Despite my skepticism, I stuck to the programme for at least half a year, and I kept going for my periodic visits to the clinic, and it did jack shit. In fact, I got worse. I was always getting worse. One thing that particularly struck me about the ME support groups was the pure desperation and confusion. With most other conditions, you're given a diagnosis, a prognosis of whether it's going to kill you, and what you can do to manage it or cure it. With ME, you don't get that. You get an indeterminately long sentence to purgatory. You feel worse than you've ever felt in your whole life, and you're given no explanation as to why, and no signpost pointing the way out. There was no selection bias to the people suffering. Members of the group were anything from esteemed ex-lawyers to single parents to former athletes. One thing I can say, these people were for the most part all extremely driven and collectively mourning their old lives. There's a stigma that because ME's predominant presentation of symptoms is tiredness, that its victims are just being lazy.
I've heard that so many times. I've got a couple of friends that have ME, and they have been shunned numerous times, particularly from the Department for Work and Pensions and for disability benefit access. Can you imagine suffering with something so awfully and then getting told that you're just lazy from a thing that people can't see pain. They can see if you are physically reacting to pain, but not all of us do that. A lot of us bear it, even though it can be excruciating. You can't always see when someone's in pain, and they don't always have to be visibly showing signs, you know. I have constant back pain. I have, right now I'm actually my time of the month, and I've got quite bad stomach cramps. I think I might have endometriosis, but that's a whole other subject that I might have to fight for looking into. But we just try and get through it, because don't want to slow things down, really, if we can help it. But sometimes there's a point you have to give in as well, and that's not lazy. This society teaches us that, at least for me, I've grown up invalidating a lot of my struggles because it could be seen as just lazy. And I'm having to unlearn all of that and take myself seriously, my body seriously, because it can absolutely catch up to you.
The predominant presentation of symptoms is tiredness, that its victims are just being lazy. I can tell you firsthand that me and every single person I've met with genuine ME would rather run 1,000 marathons than have to live another week with the tiredness and the unrelenting fatigue. We were at war with our tiredness, trying desperately to escape it, and some of us would go to extreme lengths to turn ourselves into guinea pigs to try and find ways out. Suicide was pretty common in those online support groups. It was around this time I was swallowed into the music industry. I was out busking on the streets one day and I noticed this sketchy, good-looking Mauritian guy with his arms crossed watching me really intensely, as though he was studying every lyric coming out of my mouth. He approached me and asked me if the songs I was singing were mine. I said they were. A big smile was painted across his face, and he told me he just finished recording Plan B's latest record, which turned out to be The Defamation of Strickland Banks, one of my favourite albums of all time. He was looking for a new project to sink his teeth into, and he asked me if I'd come to London to record. We got into it. The whole time I felt dreadful, but this was a lifelong dream materialising in front of my eyes. So bit by bit, when I could, I'd get the train to London and start chipping away at my first ever album. I didn't really let on how I was feeling during this time because I didn't want to sabotage it. There would be times I'd finish up in the vocal booth after doing the take, excuse myself to go to the toilet, throw up from the dizziness I was experiencing, sometimes with specks of blood, and then I'd go back and pretend that nothing had happened. I'd be sitting around with the whole room spinning and would pretend I was fine. There was only so long that I was able to keep this up.
I think someone mentioned this somewhere in a comment section or whatever. You so desperately want to appear normal. It's almost a form of masking. You grin and bear it and then take a time out to compose yourself, or throw up, to the point where there's concerningly specks of blood, he was saying. Like, it's not normal, but trying to do this thing because it meant so much to him is because society teaches us that you need to appear a certain way. Oh my God.
And would pretend I was fine. There was only so long that I was able to keep this up. Eric told me it'd be a cool idea for me to start going to industry showcases and start building buzz. Performing live like this was a whole new level of taxing that I wasn't ready for, but I was so ferociously ambitious that I just ploughed through. The usual way it would go is I'd be in the back of Charlie's car, the whole world would be spinning, I'd be trying my best to sleep in it all day, parked up outside of whatever venue or pub it was in London, trying to conserve energy for the show. Sometimes I'd cry a little before I performed. My whole body would be burning. Then I'd brush it off and I'd get on stage and I'd perform as best I could. People would come up to me at the end, pat me on the back. I'd smile and pretend to be charismatic. Then I'd get back in the car and I wish I was in bed and have to endure a 3-hour drive back to Bath from London. There was only a few shows where I could keep pretending. I'd usually be trying to disguise the fact that my body was trembling through the fatigue and pain. Eventually I started crying mid-set. It became blindingly obvious to everyone working with me during that time that something was very wrong. I told Eric that I needed to take some time out. My plan was to live at home with my mum for a month maximum, get my energy back, and come and finish the record. That 1 month turned into 2 months, turned into 3 months, turned into 6 months. I'd pushed myself to total burnout. The distance led to me and that angel breaking up, in part because it was difficult to navigate a relationship when you have so much brain fog, and I didn't know what it was well enough to be able to explain it to her at the time. With a loud thud, I'd been jolted out of a Shakespearean storyline, I lost the record deal, and I couldn't get out of bed. My friends from Trick the Fox never really called to check up on me. It felt like the whole world was moving at lightning speed without me. I had this amazing opportunity right in front of me, and I was chained to the floor. I was alone, I was sick. I wished that my condition would get it over with and kill me, but it wouldn't, and it felt cruel that it wouldn't. It just let me rot in bed. The whole world would continue to turn, and I would rot. In the next episode, I'm going to tell you about a fight with a television and losing my anal virginity to an 80-year-old man. Stay tuned for that.
My thought patterns are composed by a time bomb for an author, like pigs to the slaughter. A symphony of self-doubt sings out, breath starts getting shorter, running water. It's the state that I wish to become. Instead, concrete envelops my movement and I'm rendered deaf and dumb, unable to heed the advice of others. Don't tell me things will get better, cause so far things haven't gotten better. I've got the sweater, poster child, bipolar, ADHD, therapist, wet dream. I don't wanna talk about my father, I don't wanna talk about my dead friend, I don't wanna talk about myself. I'm sick of talking about myself. I'm sick of talking about myself and realizing that talking about myself never ever helps. Still, I call for help, cause I really want help. But the pills didn't seem to help, and the therapist didn't seem to help. But still, I want help. I've danced with the devil in hell. I've sat in a prisonless cell, and here I always dwell, in this prison in myself. I do this thing where my mind travels back to the golden age. You know those times where you were carefree and everything was golden? The golden age. You know those times where everything was golden, where you were carefree and everything was golden? The hardest thing I ever had to do was come to terms with the fact that that time never really existed. I've always felt so fucking detached and broken, bruised and mismatched. Find it hard to relax, living under the cracks. Tried to fill in the gaps, lying here on my back. Still, I can't find it. Sense of peace in my mind declined it. Pulse increase and my sweat combines with a feeling so deep I fall inside it. Depression, I hate you, depression. Your constant oppression, respond with aggression. They say depression brings you lessons. Constant stressing conceals blessings. You will grow in broken settings. Fuck those lessons, fuck depression. I've been living in your shadow for so long that I forgot how I can shine. How I can find a refuge in my mind. How am I meant to sit here and unwind? The planets align. I feel like I'm cursed. Feel like I'm cursed to just be here to hurt. Feel like I'm cursed to just be here to bleed with my demons. Been feeling this way since birth. Depression, I hate you. 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 Depression, I hate you.
Look like I'm apologising to the microphone. I'm apologising to you, obviously, for whacking the mic with my finger. I think a lot of us can relate to that. Many different parts. I haven't done a lot of the lyrical analysis to these. From what I remember, I started the chapters, it feels so long ago. I've done hundreds of videos now, or a couple of hundred at least, and that's really cool. But it just means that the last time I filmed the chapters seems like a lifetime ago, and I refreshed my memory by watching them before this and got a bit upset. Because they're talking about the struggles. They are difficult but really necessary, and I'll get through it. It's just a watch for me. I'm not living this life. I can relate to a lot of the stuff said, but it's manageable to watch and to think about and to process. This whole thing, the thing that struck me, and I think maybe a few of us saw it coming, but talking about the golden age, and everyone talks about how, you know, things were good at a point, and then him kind of admitting, I never had that. I don't remember it. It's been so long. You know, those times where everything was golden. The hardest thing I ever had to do was come to terms with the fact that that time never really existed. And then he goes on to say he felt so detached, so fucking detached and broken, bruised and mismatched, because you feel like, if everyone's saying this, why didn't I feel like that? And it creates this isolation through people who go through this and don't have those people to talk to or relate with. And there are so many, but the lines of communication might not be open in that sense. You might not belong to a community that understand or go through the same things, and it's so important to have those support networks, and even seek out, especially with the internet in this day and age. It's not easy, and making new friends is not easy either. But if there are support groups that are appropriate, it can help a lot. Putting things out on the internet is scary, and there might be zero response back for some people as well. So it's not easy to reach out or to see if anyone else is going through this, because again, that might create even more further isolation. And it's a good thing that he's been able to get this out to the world, because a lot of us can connect in this way. This is one of the reasons why I do this, because I have some outlet, a form of outlet that I can talk to people about how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, and connect others who might be relating even harder to this. It's so important to try and create that foundation for other people to seek help, creating a sense of community, allowing people to share what they're going through without feeling shame. And I think a lot of those lyrics were very prominent in sharing that feeling of isolation when it comes to depression. My thought patterns are composed by a time bomb for an author. It's almost poetic. It is poetic. But it's a panic. It's a state of stress, because he doesn't have the answers that he wants. Like pigs to slaughter. This blind... This feeling of demise. You don't know when it's going to end. It feels harrowing. A symphony of self-doubt sings out. Liken it to a symphony. Self-doubt is a horrible thing, and it can take over our minds. Breath starts getting shorter. Scary. Stress. Panic. Running water is the state that I wish to become. Doesn't want to be here. Instead, concrete envelopes my movement, and I'm rendered deaf and dumb. It's so powerful, it's taken over, and he can't even move. Unable to heed the advice of others. Don't tell me things will get better. It's a lot of people want to help by saying, "Oh, it will get better," or hopefully things will get better. But if we don't know that, that can feel quite insulting to people who don't feel like they're getting better. Where's the proof? And if you don't have that, that's not a comforting thing. But there are things that you can say, and even this might be it's probably autistic masking for me, but there are situations where people are in such an awful situation, and I don't know what to say, but I want to say something of substance. And so sometimes I'll look on the internet and look at examples of what might be appropriate to say for people in certain positions. And there are sometimes there are no real wrong and right ways to say things. Everyone is different. Everyone has different thoughts. Someone might accept you saying "I hope you're okay," and someone else might think that's an insult. So it's hard to know what to say, and if you mean well, that's always a good start. And if someone else means well, that's a good start, because there are throwaway things that people say to me, and I know they're not malicious with it, so I always try and understand that and keep an open mind and not take it so personally sometimes. But telling someone things will get better when they don't feel like things are getting better is really not, it's not good for them. It can lead into a deeper state of depression, clearly. And then he does say, because so far things haven't got better. I've got the sweater, poster child, bipolar, ADHD, therapist, wet dream. It's kind of obvious. I've got the sweater. Is that like I bought the t-shirt? Been there, bought the t-shirt. That kind of very common saying. He's saying I've got the sweater. I don't want to talk about my father. I don't want to talk about my dead friend. I don't want to talk about myself. It's to the point where he's gone through the motions so many times and he's sick of doing it. Sick of talking about myself, realising that talking about myself never ever helps, because he gets fed up with it. But also, he does want help. There is still elements of him that want help. He does want to get out of this. It's consuming so much, but he does want to get out of this. He tried pills, tried a therapist, they didn't help, but still wants help. Dance with the devil in hell. Thought about dark thoughts, I think. Sat in a prisonless cell, felt alone, isolated in this room, likening it to a prison. Here I always dwell in the prison in myself, this lonely prison, this body, this useless hollow shell that doesn't help me, that I'm trapped in. And then talking about the golden age, I do this thing where my mind travels back to the golden age, searching for good, searching for memories, searching for comfort in better times, and then say, you know, there's times where you were carefree and everything was golden, the golden age. You know, there's times where everything was golden, where you were carefree and everything was golden. The hardest thing I ever had to do was come to terms with the fact that that time never really existed. That bit broke me. So many people can relate to that. And then that leads to feeling detached, broken, bruised and mismatched, for sure. Find it hard to relax because this thing sets you on edge. It doesn't leave you. It's really hard to shift, especially when you're not feeling like you're getting better. You're in this constant negative state because nothing is helping. You're trying so hard, but it's really difficult. Living under the cracks, try to fill the gaps, get the answers, lying here on my back, still I can't find it. Sense of peace, yeah, my mind declined it. Because where am I getting peace from if I'm in this prisonless cell, going deeper and deeper, spiraling? Pulse increase, my sweat combines with the feeling so deep I fall inside it. It's consuming. Depression, I hate you, depression, your constant oppression, respond with aggression. Talking about how he deals with it, talking about how it feels. They say depression brings you lessons. Constant stressing conceals blessings. You will grow in broken settings. It's a learning experience. It will help. And it can, but also he's done at this point. There's so much he's done. I've been living in your shadow for so long that I forgot how to shine. It just takes over so much that you lose yourself. It feels like you lose yourself, and it's very difficult again to get that back, or to feel like you have the energy to get it back or search for it. How can I find a refuge in my mind? How am I meant to sit here and unwind? Because you just feel so down. The planets align. I feel like I'm cursed. I feel like I'm cursed just here to hurt. I feel like I'm cursed just here to bleed with my demons. Been feeling this way since birth. Depression. I hate you, depression. And then repeats it until he's so upset with it and so done and just can't continue. That's so powerful. I know these are not easy to get through. I know there will be harder ones. No spoilers, please, if you can help it. I'm okay. I know that there are ones that get harder. The reason I waited a while is because I wanted to forget what anyone had said. I feel like it's nicer to go in almost blind. I know there are things that I've heard and stuff, but I like that. I don't mind it. I know to expect that it might be very heavy, very triggering, and then if it's not, fine. I think that's fine. Anything Ren does, I know that there is a possibility that it could be very heavy, and then there might be nicer stuff, or nicer isn't. It's all nice, but there might be lighter stuff, and that's all good, because I want to experience it all. And I know I will pace these out because I know they can be heavy. I'm okay. I do take a lot of heavy